This is Lagers and Loudmouths, Conversations Unfiltered.
Welcome, thinkers and drinkers. Welcome to Lagers and Loudmouths. This is episode 9. We're moving right along here. We started about 3 months ago, and we're just kind of plugging along here with episode 9. This week, we've got a couple of fun topics for you. Some maybe controversial. The last one, I like the last one a lot. I had to put a lot of thought into this to pick our fun topic for the week. So, but before we do that, Ty, what are we drinking today? This is Lagers and Loudmouths, after all.
Fabulous question. So we're going back to Zool Brewing Company this week. We had the PBJ mixtape about a month or two ago.
That was a damn good
It was
beer.
Such a good beer. I figured
It's going to be hard to live up to, Zool.
Yeah, I mean, Zool's one of my favorite brewers in the Knoxville area. They don't ever miss. But this specific beer,
Woo, that is sour.
is it really?
I mean, for my taste, yes. I'm not a huge sour fan.
Right.
But it definitely puckered my cheeks a little bit.
All right, well, let me introduce it here.
Yeah.
So we are drinking Tiny Umbrellas from Zool Brewing Company. It is a fruited sour at 7% ABV, and it is a gluten-free sour ale brewed with mango, guava, and pineapple.
You definitely get the pineapple. I mean, it's a sour, but it's not like a sour. Like, there's some funky sours out there. This is not. This is almost like you're drinking breakfast juice. Actually, this reminds me a lot of Tiff and I went to Costa Rica about a decade ago. I guess like 2014. And every morning they would give you, it was like an all-inclusive resort, and you would get this little juice. And this tastes exactly like that juice. Very similar.
Yeah, it does taste like fruit juice for sure. I think it's a pretty mild sour. I didn't get that big.
It was just that first initial hit for me.
That first sip is always the big one. But no, awesome job by Zool. Keep doing what you're doing. Love what you make.
Yeah. And if you would love to sponsor us, we will gladly shout out your beers every week.
Yeah, absolutely. But check them out if you're in the Knoxville area. They don't miss. They got an awesome location. So.
They do, and we've talked about their location. It's an old car dealership where it's got windows all the way around, almost 360. So it's pretty awesome.
Their brew system is pretty sophisticated too.
Yeah, Tyler gets a little man boner every time he goes in there and sees it.
All the stainless steel and all that stuff. I love it.
And it's very clean, very well done, and great beer tenders.
Yeah, absolutely. That being said, Cam, why don't you kick us off with our serious topic of the day?
All right, so our serious topic, maybe it's not so serious, depends on how you like to look at this, but is should society embrace the legalization of psychedelics? And we're going to kind of consider this from two different areas. We're going to considering from the potential therapeutic area, or should we maintain current restrictions due to concerns of public health and safety?
Yeah, I think that's a really interesting topic. My high-level opinion, I say cut them loose. Let's put them into society and see what the benefits are of it. I think there's enough scientific research behind it that shows that it is beneficial to the overwhelming majority of people.
Let's see, now you're giving me a man boner talking about scientific research. All right, so let's define what is a psychedelic. You may also see it have referred to just generically as a hallucinogen, but basically it's a class of psychoactive substances that is going to ideally, the goal is to induce some sort of altered perception, thoughts, feelings, something along those lines.
I think it'd be good to go back to when they got made illegal, a class 1 narcotic, maybe think about some of the decisions that went behind that. So,
remind me, I did not research this. This is like the Reagan administration.
I think it was Nixon.
Okay.
In 1973 is when they became a class 1 controlled substance. And from what I saw, it was kind of due to try to suppress the hippie movement of the 60s.
Gotcha.
Psychedelics kind of dissolve opinion structures and kind of open your mind a little bit. I think there's a lot of critical thinking that can occur if an individual is on psychedelics.
So let me give you just a little science then, since you're kind of hitting on that already. So, so what it actually does is you kind of actually have two classes of psychedelics. You have your classic psychedelics, and then you have your dissociative psychedelics. I won't talk about those too much right now, but your classics, they enhance something we already have called serotonin. Serotonin is a neurotransmitter. If you don't know what a neurotransmitter is, it's basically how your neurons communicate with each other chemically. But serotonin naturally it kind of acts as a natural mood stabilizer. So essentially by taking some of these classic psychedelics, and when I say classics, I'm thinking of things like LSD, psilocybin, DMT. Those are your kind of classic psychedelics. You're essentially activating the increase in serotonin, which is making you feel good. And what's wrong with that?
Yeah, I agree. I saw a quote online that I wanted to kind of parrot here because I think it summarizes kind of my thoughts really well. This individual stated, psychedelics are illegal because they dissolve opinion structures and culturally lay down models of behavior and informational processing.
I like that.
So I think you think of back in the late 60s or whatever, the hippie movement's in full swing, peace, love, anti-war, the whole thing. I could see why a controlling administration would kind of want to pour some cold water on that and trying to control the narratives of public opinion in their own interest.
Yeah, for sure. We always know the government is they're not always looking out for our best interest. They're looking at their bottom line at the end of the day. So them controlling substances that make you feel good, make people kind of think. It makes sense that they would not want us to do that.
I think if anything that'll break down a barrier and kind of let you think about something comprehensively and make a decision based off that, I think is a good thing. And I guess good is a relative term. I think it's good from where we sit. I don't know if it's necessarily good from where maybe people in higher powers sit, if their absolute intention is to, control the population's, thought process.
Oh, for sure. I mean, if they don't want us thinking outside the box, then guess what? Don't give us that ability. And the easy way to do that is make things that give us that ability illegal.
But if you look at it from kind of the health benefit perspective, I personally believe it's a fairly low risk kind of substance to kind of use for therapeutic processes. I guess, psilocybin mushrooms, for example, those have been around for, hundreds of thousands of years. They trace back to even the Bible.
I wonder what the first guy who ate that mushroom was thinking.
I'm sure he was thinking quite a bit at about 2-3 hours in.
He ate those mushrooms and he's like, we're just trying to discover something else we can bring back to the king or to the cave or whoever. And then, went on a wild trip.
But I will say, I don't think they're probably not for everybody. I think mindset is probably a really important factor into what your experience would be with experimenting with any kind of psychedelics. So I'm not saying it's a blanket fix-all for everything. But I think the fact that, psilocybin mushrooms are a natural substance and there are scientific studies that back that they can treat or help with, things like anxiety, PTSD, things of that nature.
For sure.
I think it's a low risk way to kind of try to, fix those problems that some people have.
It's low risk, big reward. I mean, depression, we've seen anxiety and depression, the rates of that have gone up significantly in the last couple of decades. So if we can have somebody just eat a little mushroom and feel better about themselves, what the heck is wrong with that?
And there's different ways you could go about it too. I mean, I'm not saying eat, a handful of mushrooms or anything like that. But
again, if it's legalized, it has to be regulated. I still think there would be professionals who do the regulating maybe.
Sure. Even if you want to make it not, and I know a lot of the states with the cannabis have gone to full legalization recreationally. Even if you didn't want to go to that degree, I think you could, run it through a pharmacy or something like that and use it as a prescription medication.
Yep, I agree. I think that that would certainly be a good kind of segue into it to see if maybe it'll work.
And with, I was going back to dosing, you could do microdoses that don't have any physiological alterations to your day-to-day life, but they could help you mentally, with that depression, the anxiety, the PTSD, things like that. I think it's something that we need to do more research on and fund and actually do legitimized studies over the long term to prove that, hey, this is something that's been around for a long time. It's natural, low risk, high reward. What's the big deal about, using this as a method of therapeutics?
Yeah, I agree. And I'm going to talk, I do have some studies to share in a little bit. I won't get to those just yet. We don't want to put everybody to sleep yet. But I do want to talk about kind of, what do we mean when we say psychedelic? You kept talking about psilocybin a lot, and that is one of the big ones. That's the mushrooms that we often refer to as magic mushrooms. But you've also got LSD, and LSD I think scares people because they've heard about it. And again, I think that kind of goes back to the government back in the 70s trying to use scare tactics to stop people from taking them. But again, it's considered to be a classic psychedelic, and it's basically a synthetic compound that can induce kind of hallucinations and altered perception of kind of overall time and space. Psilocybin is great in terms of ease because it just comes from a mushroom. And then DMT, which stands for dimethyltryptamine. That's a big word.
Dimethyltryptamine?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
So this is another type of psychedelic that's found in certain plants, and it's actually used in some traditional cultures in the Amazonian kind of region. So those are your kind of three classics. Then you also have a couple of other ones you called your dissociative. And when we say dissociative, that essentially means you literally kind of disassociate or detach from reality. Now those sound a little scarier to me. Maybe in a controlled environment.
Yeah, for sure. You're in two different categories, I think.
Yeah. Like I said, the classics, which I think we both seem to be moderately in favor of. The dissociative, and your two big categories there are going to be ketamine and then PCP.
Yeah. Okay. So I was about to say I'm not familiar with that.
Yeah, it's those are your two big ones.
Yeah, I've heard some not great stories about those things.
Yeah, those ones would scare me a bit. So, I mean, I think if I were to have to kind of draw a line in the sand right now, I would think that classics, LSD, psilocybin, DMT, under a controlled environment, yeah, I'm in favor of.
Yeah, I think those kind of are more like the mind expansion things, gets you
they just
thinking,
make you think.
Keep you grounded.
Creativity.
Yeah, creativity, grounded, everything like that, but you're still on this planet, so to speak.
Exactly. Yeah, and the dissociative, so your ketamine and PCP, again, no personal experience here, but from what I've read, you're literally, it's like an out-of-body experience. So
I can see how that's beneficial in a controlled medical environment, possibly. It'd be interesting to see studies based on that. I don't think you would want to do the same thing with that as some states have done with cannabis and just say, yeah, you have a couple $100 in your pocket, you can go buy it.
Yeah. All right, so let's talk about pros and cons. I like pros and cons. I'm going to throw out a pro and give me what you think about it.
Yep.
You've already kind of touched on medical benefits. There is research, and I'm going to talk about some specific studies in a bit that do show that it helps with things like depression, PT, and anxiety, so we'll stop there. What about the potential pro of reduced criminalization? So we're basically, instead of putting everybody in jail for these petty crimes and charging them thousands and thousands of dollars, we're going to just make it legal, and then they can make their own decision.
I think that's a big pro. I mean, obviously, I think law enforcement and the jail system is a important construct of society. That if somebody does something wrong or very, very bad, you need to be punished and have consequences for those actions. I don't think being in possession of psychedelics for personal use warrants time behind bars. So I think it would be a big pro to, decriminalize that and just let people be Americans and do what they feel is best for them under the freedom of this country.
All right, so just to kind of play a counterpart to that. So if you recall, a few years ago, I don't remember the exact year or time, I think it was like 2020, 2021, Oregon, they decriminalized the possession of small amounts of heroin, cocaine, and various other just kind of illicit drugs. That hasn't worked. That has not worked at all. It's actually shown, I mean, now you've legit, like I've seen pictures, and again, social media, so I don't know how accurate these are, of just like people sitting in streets in some of the bigger cities in Oregon, just like shooting up, and there's nothing they can do about it other than give you a ticket.
To be fair, they do that in every other city in America as well.
No, you're right, but they're hiding it, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's fair, but it didn't do what they thought it was going to do.
That goes to a broader topic, I think, though, in regards to, because they just opened the floodgates and said,
essentially,
it doesn't matter, heroin, heroin's a pretty gnarly drug.
It is.
I don't know if...
It's not, I certainly would not put it in the same category as what we're talking about.
I wouldn't advocate for recreational heroin.
No. But I mean, that would be a concern with just making anything decriminalized do we just go down that road? I don't know.
I don't know either. If it was an easy question to answer, somebody would have figured it out.
For sure. Or somebody would have found a way to make money off of it is what they would have done.
Right, for sure.
All right, so that's reduced criminalization. Again, pros and cons to that, I think. I think ultimately, I hate seeing people that spend 10 years of their life in jail for marijuana possession. So I think reduced criminalization across the board is generally a good thing.
I, not to get off topic, but in regards to criminalization, just in general in jails, it's like, right from wrong. A really bad crime from a petty crime. And it's like this, small possession of personal, illicit substances. If you're not a violent offender, if you don't have a history of anything, like what's the big deal about that?
Yeah.
Now, like I said, I think jails and everything are important, but
they serve their purpose.
Yeah,
but they've also
serve their purpose,
they are also now just a monetized kind of system.
I was gonna go down that road too. It's all follow the money trail, and you'll and you'll figure it out pretty damn quick. But I digress. Continue.
Yeah. That's a great topic for another day.
Yeah, 100%.
All right, so another potential pro-regulation of quality. Again, if you want to buy magic mushrooms or psilocybin or LSD, knowing that I can go to my special store in town to buy it, and that it is very regulated in a nice sealed package, seems much more ideal than going to the guy on the corner.
Yeah, if I was going to go down that route, I would definitely want it to be a controlled substance from that regard.
For sure.
I want to know that what I'm about to put in my body is a quality product that isn't, laced with anything weird.
And that's the thing we're seeing these days. I mean, there's lots of people smoking weed dying from fentanyl use. I mean, you smoke weed and they're putting fentanyl in it, and which, again, it's another addictive drug. We won't go down that road. But there's people dying from that all the time. Mm-hmm. So regulation.
Well, if you look at it from the money perspective as well, it's like, okay, you decriminalize this, you start selling it, you're going to tax the absolute piss out of it.
Of course.
And the state and the federal government are going to make money.
I mean, how much, I don't know the numbers off the top of my head, but how much has Colorado made in taxes since they've legalized
I'm sure
recreational?
It's a shitload.
And why do you think every other state is following suit? They just realized that, hey, we're leaving hundreds of millions of dollars on the table here, things that people are going to do anyway.
It's weird to me that some things are legal and some things aren't. I mean, they tax alcohol, they tax tobacco.
Yep.
I would argue that alcohol is probably more catastrophic than psychedelics or marijuana would be.
I wouldn't disagree with you there. No.
So it's just weird how they pick and choose.
Well, again, kind of goes back to maybe what you were talking about earlier. Yeah.
Yep. Control.
Yep. All right. So let's talk about cons. I like cons just because it's good to look at both sides of the equation. So what about the potential public health and safety risk? So there is some thought that psychedelics can pose risk to just overall public health and safety. Again, if they're not used responsibly, could lead to an increase in things like accidents, injuries, things like that.
So can anything, though. In my opinion,
agreed. And
you drink too much, you can kill people.
I agree, and I'm kind of grasping at straws for cons here. But the biggest cons, I think, are probably going to be misuse. But you can misuse anything. You can misuse alcohol. You can misuse recreational weed. Although that'd be pretty hard to do. You'd probably fall asleep or get the munchies before that happens.
And like I said, it's not a blanket kind of statement.
I think it depends on the particular drug,
and it depends on the person too. Some things just aren't for everybody.
Yep.
So I don't think it's going to be beneficial for 100% of people, but I think it would be beneficial for the overwhelming majority of people who want to, experiment with that.
Yep. All right. What do you? I got some studies if you're ready for them.
All right, hit me.
All right, I like science, so I'm going to give you I got one for psilocybin, one for MDMA. Actually, I got two for psilocybin. Let's see, which one do I like better? I like this first one. All right, so there was a study done in 2016 by Ross et al. The study was basically psilocybin produces substantial and sustained decreases in depression and anxiety in patients with life-threatening cancer. This was a randomized double-blind trial. It's kind of the high gold standard in research. And their overall findings were that just one single dose of psilocybin, had a pretty significant and lasting positive impact on those people who had life-threatening cancer. Why would we not let these people who are going through something like that have this small little out?
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's a misconception too, because you brought that up with the long-term benefit. It's like, yes, if you take enough psilocybin, you're going to have a hallucinogenic effect. And
are you saying I would always be hallucinating?
No.
That could be better for me.
This podcast will get a lot more interesting, I'll tell you that much. But no.
There's an idea. We're going to do a podcast on magic mushrooms.
No. But what what I was getting at is, even if you take a dose that has hallucinogenic effects, that's a short term, process, 4, 5, 6 hours. But the chemical effects in your brain will have, a longer duration than the actual physical effects are. And I think that's a big part of how you could justify that, it is overwhelmingly positive for people who have specific, conditions.
Agreed. And here's another one. So this one's MDMA, which we all know as just the street lingo is ecstasy. But this particular study, 2019, so pretty recent, Mithofer et al. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. I'm sure you're listening. But this one is MDMA-assisted psychotherapy for the treatment of PTSD. And basically what they found is that but these people who took MDMA had significant reductions in their overall PTSD. Now, we know that PTSD is a pretty major issue in our country, not just from the military, but just in general in life. I mean, you could have PTSD from a poor experience when you were a child.
Yeah.
So,
traumatization isn't just, based off the military.
No, I mean, that's what we think about when we think of PTSD, but it can be
course.
lots of things.
No, I mean, everybody's experienced some kind of trauma in their life.
Yep. And again, positive effects. The results were quite positive in that people who took it, PTSD symptoms were significantly reduced.
And I would say PTSD, I don't particularly have it, but I could see how that is just a debilitating kind of condition.
I would think so.
And I'd say along with that, PTSD on its surface is bad enough, but you probably have, subsequent anxiety and depression based off that too.
Yeah, I would think so. All right, so those are I gave you 2 positives in terms of research studies. Now, I did look for some negatives because I like to be an equal opportunity presenter here. So there was another study done in 2013, Krebs et al. The association between psychedelic use and mental health. This was a longitudinal analysis, and if you know anything about research, longitudinal means that they were looking at it for a long period of time, which is kind of what we want, because one dose does not make the actual study. So in this case, the studies found that there was an association between lifetime use of psychedelics and an increased likelihood of developing mental health issues, such as suicidal thoughts, depression, and anxiety. However, again, in this case, cause does not necessarily, the causation wasn't necessarily established that it was due to the psychedelics.
Sure. So that kind of tells me that, and I don't want to dismiss that. I mean,
of course not.
But that's why you need.
And I think it goes back to your point about the person. Yes, I mean, and this is talking about long-term use. I mean, I don't know what their exact parameters were, but long-term use means you're probably doing it on a pretty regular basis.
Sure, and what are the effects of that? Does it change the chemistry in your brain?
Yeah.
How does that affect? So I think there needs to be more medically funded studies on this stuff.
For sure.
Give them the data. Give it non-biased data. Just give me the facts and let people decide for themselves.
Yeah, and I think that's what it comes down to is the actual research. And you can see, I mean, I'm giving you guys some study. There's some research out there, but it's pretty minimal because, again, research comes from funding. And not a lot of people want to fund something like this because there's no money to be made yet.
I think there's money to be made. I think
there's plenty of money to be made.
There's a big stigma around it. If you're a university and you're dependent on, funding coming in from the outside, and you're like, I want to study psychedelics over a long period of time, some big backers may not want their name associated with that study. So
and that's what funding comes down to in higher ed or any sort of institution is, do I want my name established with this? I mean, back in the 80s, 70s, maybe it was 60s, I don't know the exact year, but Marlboro, the cigarette company, they paid to have studies done to show that cigarettes weren't bad for you.
Right.
Obviously, we know they are, and that has since stopped. But
it's almost like they have a vested interest in people buying cigarettes.
Surprise,
crazy, huh?
So that just goes to show that the money you got to look at the money trail when it comes to research.
Oh, 100%,
and the money trail
100%.
does not currently exist because there's no money to be made by seeing positive or negative results from these studies.
I think that's just people not looking up things objectively.
Yeah, which a good scientist should do, but well. They also got bills to pay, so.
I understand. I totally understand. I don't agree with it, but, you know.
All right, well, what are your final thoughts? Final thoughts on psychedelics. Should they or should they not be legalized, yes or no?
I say yes.
Yes, I'm with you. I think they should be legalized with certain parameters, just like alcohol, just like recreational marijuana in those states that do allow it. Legalize it within those parameters and study it. Let's see what positives we can. There are studies that are showing some pretty promising things.
I do want to bring one thing up,
Yeah.
not to extend this longer than it needs to go. Look at the car styling in the 60s, and then look at the car styling in the 70s. I'm not
They
going
had
to
a
say
lot cooler cars back then. You're right.
I'm not going to say that it's a causal effect.
Yeah.
But
Correlation doesn't equal causation, but
I understand, but the styling of the 60s cars were art pieces. And the further you went in the 70s, the more hot garbage you got.
yeah. And
So-
nowadays cars these days don't look good. I don't think you got exceptions, but
I'm not saying all car designers were tripping balls on mushrooms.
maybe they should
but
be.
Maybe they should be.
All right. I think we've beat this one, so or at least in our opinions. Share what you think. Do you think psychedelics, hallucinogens, should be legalized? Pros, cons. Would you try them? Would you not? Share whatever you think. All right. What's our fun topic today?
Fun topic. This is a good one. I like this one a lot. So our fun topic is pick your top 3 TV dads and then tell us which one is the best and why.
Wait, you guys got dads?
Some of us do.
Sorry, that's an inside joke. Everybody that knows us will enjoy that. All right. How do you want to? You want to go 1, 2, 3 each person, or 1, 1, 2, 2, 3?
No,
three?
let's flip back and forth.
All
so
right.
you give me your first one.
In no particular order. I'm going Phil Dunphy from Modern Family.
Yep, that's a solid one.
I mean, Phil, he's a great dad as it is, but he also kind of tries to play the role of being like the cool dad. He's always positive. He's very supportive of all of his kids, much to his wife's demise sometimes. Obviously very funny because it's a sitcom. So, I think Phil Dunphy would be a solid choice.
That's a solid one. All right, TV dad number 1, Ron Swanson.
Is he a dad?
He was in the later stages of the episodes or
Okay.
the series.
If I would have known Offerman was a choice, I didn't realize that he was a dad in that show because I haven't watched it.
He was dating a lady that had 2 like 8-year-old girls, and then he actually ended up having a kid with her later in the series. So technically,
Okay.
yes.
Yeah, he's a dad, right.
It wasn't. He's not your. He's not the first person that comes to your head, but he was a father, and I can make an argument.
Listen, I would
he
pick
was a
Nick.
good father.
I would pick Nick Offerman to be my real dad right now.
Oh, 100%.
I mean,
What a guy.
Yeah, I watched. Have you seen that show Hot Ones?
Yeah.
One, I think we should do that on a podcast one day.
Ooh, that's a great idea.
And 2, I watched Offerman's the other night, and he's just a cool dude. I mean, he's just down to earth. He's very realistic about life, and he does have these kind of one-liners that are just life goals.
His demeanor and the way he communicates makes the comedic effect of what he says even better too.
Yeah.
Because he's very monotone, doesn't have a lot of inflection or emotion, but it kind of goes along with his personality.
All right, so just full disclosure, Tyler just committed to a Hot Ones podcast. I'm going to make it happen. You guys are going to get to listen to this.
That'd be good.
Tyler's a bit of a bitch when it comes to hot things, so this will be fun for me to watch. I'm going to suffer as well, but it'll be fun for me. So it's good. All right, Nick Offerman.
Yep. What's your number 2?
My number 2, I'm going with Red Foreman.
Oh, you son of a bitch.
Oh, is he one of yours?
He's one of mine as well.
All right, I'm going with Red Foreman. I mean, he's just a great dad. There's nothing bad about him other than he's a bit of an asshole. But I think that makes him a good dad.
Yeah, he's a hard ass for sure, but I think he is a good father. He's the epitome of blue collar American.
Yeah, he works.
You know.
He expects something out of his kid. He doesn't hold their hand.
He doesn't hold their hand, but he doesn't make them, I want to say, suffer loosely, because he does kind of, stir the pot a little bit and, piss off his kids. But overall,
No, but he instills discipline, work ethic. He obviously if you know the show, he's very protective of his daughter, not so much his son, because I think he's trying to, that's his way of parenting, that he's trying to get his son to be this man who can,
I think that translates pretty well into regular America too.
yeah,
because
and,
if you have,
that's the thing. It was that 70s show. How do you think he would translate to today's modern parenting style? I mean, you're not a parent, you never will be, but is It's a little different. It's
That's
a little
hard.
different. Yeah, if
'Cause
you think about it in terms of modern.
He's so old school.
Yeah.
I could see him getting in trouble with his parenting style.
Not PC enough.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, I agree.
Especially going to a parent-teacher conference or something like that.
Yeah,
Red Foreman in 2024, it'd be a little hard for him, but I don't think he would change his ways.
Well, I mean, my wife often, when we watched that not that long ago, just start to finish, she often compared me to him. So he does exist in 2024, just in me.
I like it. I wouldn't. I don't necessarily agree with that.
Red Foreman?
Yes. I don't see it.
I have a bit of that. I think the discipline I do expect. I mean, listen, I've only got a 5.5-year-old. I can only do so much with a 5.5-year-old. But I do expect discipline, like he's got chores.
I could see it coming out of you later in your child's life, probably. If, he did something stupid. And,
all right, dumbass.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So what's your number 2 then?
Well, that was my number 2.
Oh, hot damn. All right, I took your number 2.
All right, so let's kick it off to number 3.
All right, my number. You give me your number 3. My
All
number
right.
3 is it's out there.
All right. Wouldn't it be funny if we hit the same
That would
again?
be amazing.
All right. My number 3 is Walter White.
Okay. All right.
Breaking Bad.
That's fair. I mean, he is the epitome of gonna do whatever it takes to take care of my family.
And that was what it was. He had cancer. He wanted to take care of his family. Started producing methamphetamines and selling it and was very successful at it. And at the end of the day, spoiler alert, he ultimately, tore apart his family because of it.
Son of a bitch. I haven't watched it.
Yeah, well, you're a little late to the game there.
I am a little late to the game.
It's I don't think he's the best example of a father figure, but the reason I picked
qualities, he's got some qualities.
Yeah, the reason I picked him is because he had that I am going to do whatever it takes mentality to make sure that my family is taken care of. Now, did he go about it in the right way? Ultimately, no. But
I mean, one could argue he did.
Yeah, but I mean,
at the end of the day, taking care of your family is your ultimate goal. So I don't care how you get that done.
He took care of his family at the expense of himself because they ultimately
That's true.
It ultimately ripped him apart. So,
all right, that's a good choice.
It's a cryptic way to look at it, but I stand by it.
No, I like it. All right, so my last one is one going to piss off Tiff. She absolutely hated this guy, so that's always a win for me. Did you ever watch Shameless?
Yes.
Frank Gallagher.
Yes.
Frank Gallagher. Listen, the guy was an absolute drunkard alcoholic, but he had some positive. He was always there. You remember the show, Mom was never there. The mom showed up a couple episodes and she tried to stay and tried to make it work, but she was ultimately a terrible mother. Frank never left his kids.
Yeah. Who's the God, it's been a while since I watched this show. Who was the chick in that show, the older one?
Oh, the daughter.
Yeah.
Fiona is her name.
I would argue that Fiona was a better father figure than Frank Gallagher was, but I do agree with what you said.
No, I don't disagree. I mean, she ultimately did most of the child rearing through the first, I don't know how many seasons there were, but for the beginning parts of the season until she got written off the show. But Frank was there. Frank was there until the very end.
Physically, he might not have been all there mentally, but
no, he was never there mentally. That last episode, do you watch the whole series?
I haven't watched the whole
series.
Oh,
you need to. That last episode is, I won't ruin it for you, but
it got a bit dark for me at one point.
It did get a little dark. It's out there. But no, Frank Gallagher, that's my third choice.
Yeah, I like it.
I like Frank Gallagher.
Okay, so out of those 3, who you picking as number 1 dad?
Got to go Red Foreman.
Yeah.
I mean, I got to. He's like it's like if I as a dad, there's a lot of his qualities that I would like to take away and be to my son. So yeah, I think Red Foreman would be my number 1 choice.
I was going to say that too, but just for the sake of, having a discussion, I'm going to pick Ron Swanson because I think he's very confident in who he is. He's got a lot of skills. And one of the reasons I picked him is because he was never an individual who, throughout the series, portrayed that he wanted to be a father. And he started dating this girl.
No, like I said, I didn't know until you just told me.
Right. He started dating this girl, and, he had to babysit her 2 young daughters, and he was like a fish out of water. Struggled a little bit, ultimately, made some mistakes, but did the right thing at the end, and then ended up having his own son with this same woman who you could just tell from how they portrayed it in the series, he was, just wanting to teach him from day one. Ron Swanson's a man's man. does a lot of, manual projects, woodworking, what have you. And, that kid was, sitting right there while he's refinishing floors and cutting wood and stuff like that. So I like what I saw in regards to how he wanted to just instill everything in him to this, infant. And
All right.
I think that's what would make him a fantastic dad.
All right. Yeah, no, I don't disagree. Listen, like I said, I would legit, if Nick Offerman walked in, I'd be like, "Hi, Daddy. How are you? Long time no see."
Well, you're the only one of us that's in the market for a dad, so.
All right. So I just wanted to throw in a little side to end us here. All right. We all picked actual, live people.
Mm-hmm.
Favorite cartoon dad?
Ooh.
I've got mine.
Okay, give me yours.
This one, you might be mad when I pick him because you're going to want to pick him too.
Okay.
Hank Hill.
I almost said that, but I'm going. I think I'm going a different route.
I think I know where you're going, but
Okay.
I'm going Hank Hill. Hank Hill again. Honestly, he's got a lot of similarities to Red Foreman, so that's why I like him. Damn it, Bobby. So I don't know. I think I just like Hank Hill. I think he was a solid dad. Always took care of his family. Sold propane and propane accessories. So yeah.
I'll tell you what. All right. I'm not going the direction you think I'm going.
No.
I'm gonna say Bob from Bob's
That's
Burgers.
exactly what I knew you were going to
Oh,
say.
really?
Yeah, I was
Okay.
picking that.
Okay. I do have an honorable mention though.
Okay.
But I love Bob from Bob's Burgers. He's the epitome of, struggling family man. He's
Bob Belcher. I've
yeah,
never
Bob-
watched it. I got to watch
Oh,
it.
dude, it's a good series.
Is it?
Yeah, Bob Belcher owns a little hamburger shop with his wife and his kids that, help run the restaurant and everything like that. And he just has, adversities every single episode. You could tell he's tired, worn out, just trying to make ends meet and not get hassled.
Mm-hmm.
I love it.
All right.
And he's hilarious.
That's a good choice. My second honorable mention was Mufasa.
Okay, yeah.
I've just Lion King's always near and dear to me, so I like Mufasa, even though he got trampled and lost and died.
Spoiler, dude.
I know, sorry. If you haven't seen it, it's 30 years old at this point.
All right, my honorable mention number 2, and Miss Haley is going to freak the hell out if she would listen to a damn podcast episode. Calling you out, Haley. But don't know his name, but the dad from Bluey.
So Bandit.
Bandit. Yep.
Bandit is that's a real good choice. He could honestly be up there for top 3. He could have made our top 3. I have a 5-year-old, so I've watched pretty much every Bluey episode at this point. Honestly, I hate him. I absolutely hate that.
He makes
asshole.
you look bad.
He makes me look terrible. He will. The episodes he doesn't work, so I don't know when he's working because every episode's him playing with his kids and making us all us dads looking back. So no, actually, I do not like that choice. Bandit is an asshole to all dads everywhere because he makes dadding unrealistic.
Well, he's also a dog, so.
Yeah, so, you know what pisses me off about that show is they walk on 2s.
Yeah.
I'll be watching it, like, and they'll play walking on 4s with their kids, and that's like hard for them. Like there's one episode I think Bandit's back is hurting from walking on 4s. I'm like, you're a damn dog. You normally walk on 4s.
Your back should be hurting from doing the
I
other
know.
thing. Yeah.
Sorry, that's a good choice though, but I do hate him because he makes us all look bad.
Well, I think that wraps it up pretty well. I want to kick it over to you and get your hot take of the week.
My hot take of the week. All right, so my hot take of the week is. It kind of goes back to TV show watching. Stop believing all of these things that you see on Netflix documentaries. And there is a specific reason I have this. So there was this one that came out about a month ago. It's called You Are What You Eat, and they did a twin experiment where they basically had 2 twins and they tried to compare them on 2 different diets, either a vegan diet or a standard kind of omnivore diet. And both were healthy. They were designed by a registered dietitian, but it was an absolute, we watched it all because I'm always interested in health things, but there's a lot of flaws in the way they did this study. So ultimately, that's my hot take of the week is just don't always believe what you see. Do your own research.
At the end of the day, those documentaries are entertainment.
They're entertainment. And that's the thing that people got. All right. So fun fact about this particular one, guess who funded it? It goes back to what we were talking about with funding.
Oh, who?
The Impossible Burger people. So of course it's going to show that, and listen, I'm not I teach nutrition. A vegetarian diet is very healthy most of the time when done properly. So I'm not advocating one way or the other. I'm just saying do your due diligence and don't always trust what you see on the TV.
Yeah, no, I agree. So
what is yours? What do you got?
My hot take of the week is, and it kind of goes back to our psychedelic conversation.
Mm-hmm.
Don't be married to your ideas.
That is a good hot take.
Have an open mind. There's nothing wrong with being incorrect about something, as long as you're approaching it in the right way.
As long as you're willing to learn.
Exactly.
Yeah.
What my absolute pet peeve is people that are married to the ideas, they're incorrect, and they double down on it just for the sake of not wanting to be wrong.
And honestly, that's what I really like about doing this podcast is it requires me to look into things that I don't know a whole heck of a lot about a lot of the time. So I may come in with preconceived ideas, but I always, like I said, this is why I always approach things from a pro-con standpoint, because it lets me see both sides of the equation.
I think to go along with that, people need to open their minds,
Yep.
bring in real data, and form their own conclusions.
Yep.
Don't be parroting all this other stuff you see or what you think is right or what aligns with your narrative.
Yep.
I'm a very objective, data-driven person. I want the facts. I want them to be unbiased, and I want to be able to process that in my own head and form my own opinion that I could then discuss intelligently, which is what I try to do on this podcast as well.
Yep, I agree. No, that's good. That's a good hot take. Yep. Come in with an open mind and make a decision based on what you learn. Ultimately is what it comes down to.
Yep.
All right, you want to take us away?
Yeah. Thanks for listening to episode 9 of the podcast. Be sure to tune in the next couple of weeks. We're trying to line up a handful more guests for your listening entertainment.
And we have a hot ones. Tyler's going to eat some hot wings sometime in the future. We'll let you know.
Yeah, we'll have to figure that out and structure it, but I think that could be a fun episode.
That would be hilarious.
But until then, guys, stay safe, and we'll see you in a couple weeks.
Thank you for tuning in to Lagers and Loudmouths. Be sure to never miss an episode by subscribing to us on your favorite podcast streaming service. If you would like to provide feedback or suggest a topic for a future episode, please reach out to us at lagersandloudmouths@gmail.com.